Apparently, pickup trucks are all the rage in some part of the world, but it wasn't always like this. What used to be a humble carrier of many things evolved to become a versatile vehicle that is pretty much a vehicular jack of all trades. When did pickups start to pop up? What led to the popularity? And what future lies ahead? Welcome everyone to episode 58 of the Automotive History series, where we're going to investigate every nook and cranny of the loading bed of the pickup truck. Now, what I usually do in these types of videos is starting off by talking about the horse-drawn era, and the pickup is no exception. In essence, the predecessor of the pickup truck is the humble horse and cart. I mean, replace the horse with an engine and put the driver in an enclosed cabin, and you get pretty much the basic recipe. This means that there is no definitive answer on what was the very first pickup truck. Much like how the horse and carriage evolved to become the motor car, so the horse and cart became the pickup truck and the delivery van. A common practice was to make a custom body on top of the chassis of various motorized carriages that featured a rear tray or bed, turning it into what we now call a pickup. These cars were a perfect fit for instance, farmers. It rode like a car, but could carry a bit more stuff, just enough so you didn't have to buy a full-blown freight truck. It won't come as a surprise that especially the Ford Model T was a popular car to modify to become a pickup. Coach builders would take the chassis to turn the Tin Lizzie into various body styles like sporty roadsters and delivery vans, and also pickups. By the late 1910s, especially after the First World War, where the pickup proved popular by the army, various car makers started to get a sense of this aftermarket business and decided to jump into the market by offering a pickup chassis. You could buy these stretched commercial chassis and then order your own custom body on top of that. But by the mid-1920s, car makers like Ford and Chevrolet offered all-steel pickups fresh from the factory, so the whole package, including a fully enclosed cabin. Ford called their model the Model T Runabout with Pickup Body, and most likely invented the term that we now use today. By the 1930s, pickup trucks were a common sight on rural roads and construction sites, but by the looks of it, it was mostly an American affair. There were some Japanese car makers that offered car-based pickup versions, but in Europe, things were quiet. One reason why I can think of, Europeans in general tend to prefer cargo vans over pickup trucks for some reason. Some source notes that the very first European truck was the 1934 Citroën Traction Avant Commerciale. But this isn't even a pickup truck, it's more like a commercial van based on a regular passenger car, so it doesn't really count. And honestly, I couldn't really find any other European contenders either. Anyway, in the same 1930s, a spin-off of the pickup truck recipe emerged down under, in Australia. According to the story, a farmer's wife wrote a letter to Ford asking if they could design a pickup truck that would look good showing up at church on Sundays and on the farmer's market with the pigs in the bag on Mondays. And Ford decided to go ahead and make one. The result was the so-called coupe utility, or car-based pickup. One of my earliest automotive history episodes I made goes into the history of these cars, so I'll keep it short. Because as much as the coupe utility, or ute, became a cult classic in Australia, I like to wonder how radically different it was from, let's say, a Ford Model T pickup, which is essentially the same recipe, a car-based pickup, or roadster utility. But the major distinction is that a ute is a complete body. The bed is fully integrated in the car body, whereas a regular pickup, the loading bed and passenger cabin are separated. Pickups proved to be useful during the Second World War, right next to the larger trucks, and when the war was over, many car makers or divisions that were specialized in making war material turned their models into civilized versions for civilian use. Think of Willys that converted their Jeep to become the Jeepster passenger car and also received a station wagon and pickup spin-off, the Willys Jeep truck. Another example is Dodge that continued to sell the military-grade Power Wagon for civilian use and became the first 4x4 pickup to be sold to the public. These were also the years when the pickup truck was still your best friend at the job site, and were sold as such through awesome marketing terms like bonus bolt, task force, and power wagon, stressing the ruggedness and durability. They were bare-boned and honest vehicles, a proper car for a proper job. They still had manual transmissions just when the automatic started to emerge, and you'd consider yourself lucky if your truck came with anything more than a steering wheel. Radios, heaters, and the like were options, if available at all. This all started to change in the 1950s. During this decade, cars started to become more apparent all over the world. Cars became more accessible, and with that, automotive subcultures emerged and fully developed in the 1960s. Some people liked speed, so a whole new sports car market emerged, from expensive to cheap and everything in between. Some people valued family-friendly space, so a whole new station wagon market emerged, etc., etc. This development also happened to pickup trucks. On top of their strong foundations as a strictly for work vehicle, new segments were added with the introduction of luxury and lifestyle pickups. Still as versatile as ever, but now better suited for civilian use. Think of a nicer cabin, more interior room, standard equipment like a heater and radio, and on the outside, two-tone paint, passenger car style wheels featuring white walls. Pickups also grew in size, becoming 3-seaters instead of 2, featuring longer and wider beds and more powerful engines with greater towing capacity. Some pickups started to even adopt car-like styling, and a great example is the stylish truck like this 1957 Dodge Sweepline, a pickup that featured the rear fenders that were taken off from a Dodge station wagon and is essentially the only pickup ever built to feature tail fins. In general, pickups now came in 2 body styles for the truck bed. One was called the stepside, with separate rear fenders and sometimes running boards, as it has always been, and one that was called the fleetside, with full envelope body, following the lines of the rest of the car body. The 1950s was also a time where the pickups started to slowly emerge on the European market. Various British car makers like Bedford and Austin started selling their own pickups, and on mainland Europe, Volkswagen offered a pickup version of the Transporter van. What is fairly unique about this one is the so-called forward control setup, where the driver is sitting on top of the front axle, and in case of the Transporter, the engine was mounted in the rear, as opposed to regular pickups that featured a prominent hood and front-mounted engine. And let's also not forget our friends from South America. In Brazil, a unique little subspecies based on regular pickups emerged. A local coach builder by the name of Sul-Americana was given the right by Ford to customize the regular pickups and turn them into weird contraptions that should not be viewed by anyone under 16. Viewer discretion is advised. The coach builder turned regular Ford pickups into most inappropriate body styles, like sedans. They would turn the truck bed into an actual trunk, along with unique rear-end styling. Later on, they converted the pickups to become half-van, half-pickup-like vehicles. By the 1960s, when car culture reached its peak, car companies first made sure to subscribe to edsautoreviews and watch some of his videos before they jumped into it by selling you cars that weren't just transportation, but a lifestyle. Yes, you can drive a plain Jane pickup to the construction site, but what about a pickup in your own driveway for your own personal pleasure during the weekends? Remember the Old West? Remember cowboys? Yeah, you can be a cowboy too, and your pickup will be your noble steed, a companion for the great outdoors, a country squire? The personal pickup market grew and car companies and aftermarket businesses jumped in on it. You could put a tent up in the back of the bed, but what about a camper conversion, where you bolt a separate cabin onto the back of your truck? Pickups were a great choice for such fun outdoor activities like fishing, hunting, camping, or trying to bring peace to the Middle East. New was the introduction of the so-called extended cab and crew cab body styles. Before that, pickups were almost exclusively 2-door and could only seat 2 or 3 people. With the introduction of the extended cab, the pickup still had 2 doors, but a bit more room in the cabin behind the front bench seat for extra storage or a jump seat. The crew cab introduced an extra set of doors and a second row of seating, so that it could now seat 4 or even 6 people. By the 1970s and 1980s, some interesting shift happened in the homeland of the pickup truck, the USA. Due to an oil crisis and a cry for safer and less polluting cars, cars had to be, safer, less polluting, and more fuel efficient. And these demands were imposed by CAFE, the corporate average fuel economy, and later on, the gas guzzler tax. However, after some extensive lobbying, it was decided that these rules would only apply to regular passenger cars, and not the so-called light trucks. The reason for this was that small and mid-sized businesses that relied heavily on these vehicles were hit unreasonably hard. I mean, you gotta protect your inner capitalism, right? And what were light trucks exactly? Well, full-size vans, minivans, SUVs, and ta-da, pickups. This practically meant that American car makers had to comply with ever stricter rules for the passenger cars and station wagons, but could essentially keep on building pickup trucks and vans the exact same way as they did before, completely disregarding safety and emission standards. And this led to some peculiar situations. For instance, by the mid-70s, the muscle car craze was over because of the reasons I just explained. They were too thirsty, unsafe, and lost power due to emission controls. Most people gave up on their slice of performance and moved to sluggish luxury land yachts, but a small group turned to commercial vehicles, which were unaffected. This trend was picked up by the auto industry, pun definitely intended, and released all kinds of performance versions for their vans and pickups. So, the sports pickup was born. A great example are the Dodge pickup trucks, like the Little Red Express truck, which at one time was like the fastest car in the United States, simply because it made plenty of power with their unrestricted engines made before the whole malaise era had started. What do you think of that? You think America's fastest car was the Corvette, but nope, it's a truck. And so Dodge sold some more adult toys with fantastic names, such as the Warlock and the Macho Power Wagon. Fast forward towards the new millennium, and the effects of the lax regulations in the USA became pretty clear. The truck landscape was more diverse than ever. Pickups came in all shapes and sizes, mostly sizes. You had the tiny truck, the small truck, the medium truck, the big truck, the big truck, and whatever the hell this is. You had the lifestyle and luxury trucks, you had the sports trucks, and in the 1990s you also had the rise of the street truck, like the GMC Cyclone, and then there were the coupe utilities. But among all these trucks, one development became pretty clear. The pickup truck was no longer a strict commercial vehicle, it was personal transportation. Along with the SUV, which are often based on truck platforms, it was a replacement for the regular passenger car. More and more people bought pickups without really needing them in the first place. This isn't a USA only thing. All over the world, pickups are becoming more popular. And what's not to like about a pickup truck? Maybe it's the ultimate vehicle for personal transportation. You get a great view, a sense of superiority, a sense of safety, comfort, plenty of power. You can take on almost any terrain, get loads of interior space, can tow a thing or two, and can haul a thing or two. What's not to like? And the world agrees. In fact, the third best-selling car worldwide is a pickup truck. There are huge parts of the world where the pickup is a very handy vehicle because of bad infrastructure. In the USA, the Ford F-150 is the best-selling model for over 40 years. In Australia, the so beloved Ute, an Australian icon, died a slow death in favor of, guess what, pickups. Even in Europe, the last bastion of commercial vans, more and more people buy pickup trucks, but usually because of grey import and all kinds of financial deals, which make driving a big car with a big bed rather attractive. But trust me when I say that these people are not all contractors or gardeners. Even nail salon owners feel the need to own a pickup. Although these pickups tend to be a bit on the smaller side, think of the Ford Ranger or the Toyota Hilux, as opposed to the US trucks, which are much bigger. As of today, I think we're on the verge of a great new development in the world of pickups. The introduction of the all-new electric pickup truck could possibly redefine the purpose of the pickup truck. What used to be a car capable of hauling things is now being transformed into a portable workstation. The bed is no longer just there to put stuff in. You can fold it out and convert it into a workbench, and because it's electric, you can charge your power tools while on the job. And so there are some more nifty design tricks. But because they are electric, some car makers will have a tough time convincing their rather conservative clientele, better known as
truck bros.
You know, the guys that love the truck so much that their engine displacement matches their credit score, and like the ride height so much they decided to lower it, and like their visibility so much that they obstruct it by their own black diesel smoke by rolling the coal. In order to convince these people that electric trucks are just as cool as regular dyno juice powered trucks, a few car makers decided to go all out with a halo model that features a ridiculous design and even more ridiculous performance specs. Think of Tesla with their bizarre Cybertruck, or General Motors with the GMC Hummer. Let them get used to it and expand from there. The pickup will go most likely the way of the smartphone. It can do everything, and oh yeah, you can also call people with it. It can do everything, and oh yeah, you can also haul stuff with it. Who knows? Maybe the pickup will eventually become the best-selling body type worldwide, pushing the regular passenger car out of business. The pickup truck, bought by people that only use it for towing 7% of the time, loading it up 30% of the time, but mostly use it for the daily commute to their office jobs or the short trip to the perfectly paved mall to get some groceries, which all fit right behind the front seats.